Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Amanda and this is a bookish persuasion. Lots have been going on. I actually had already pre-filmed this, but I had cut my head off most of the time, I guess. I don't really know. Like I wasn't paying attention. So I was like this the whole time or something similar. So I needed to refilm it. So here we are. Also, I changed my hair. I got bangs. Don't know if I'm going to keep them, but this is my naturally curly hair, but I do like this length a lot better. So, you know, we'll try it out. We'll give it some time. I don't know. I'm not fully committed yet, but I figured if we're in a quarantine, this is probably the best time to do it. I haven't had bangs since I was a kid, so we're just gonna figure it out. It's fine. So this month I actually read 12 books, which was a total of 5,399 pages. So couldn't quite get to the 5,400, but I'm still happy nonetheless. I actually read a lot of books that I really enjoyed. I write them down. This is for January. I write them down for my bullet journal, all my books read. I also participated in 2 readathons, which I will go over in just a minute. But I wanted to show you my page tracker for December, if I can find it. Here we go. Here is my page tracker. Yes, it's bright and colorful and ugly, but you know what? I don't care. I'm not an artist. It's just for me. I will put this out there. I am not a book reviewer, at least not a very good one. I don't know. So these are just my personal opinions and everything is subjective. You know, I primarily rate on the enjoyability of a book, how much I enjoyed the story. If it wasn't problematic, then it's pretty much a 4 or 5 star for me if I enjoyed it. Now, 3 stars are books that are still very good. They're just not as high on the list. So as you guys watch my channel, as I continue to do these wrap-ups, we'll both learn together more of the type of book that I find deserves a 4 or 5 star, but it's typically going to be a paranormal romance, a high fantasy, or a Sarah J. Maas book. The 2 readathons that I participated in this month. One was a carryover. It ran from November 1st through December 31st called Clear Your Shitathon. I forget who hosted it. I think it was Mouse Reads, but I will include their name and hopefully a link to their channel in the description box. The second one I participated in was Mary Bookmas. It was hosted by a couple different people, but the booktuber that I found it from was Kehlani, Simply Me. She's a really great booktuber. Highly recommend both of those 2. I'll include them both below. So as I go through this, I'll tell you what prompts I used each book for. There was some overlap as Clear Your Shitathon was my main priority this month. Really just aggressively trying to clear through some backlist books and read a couple newer books, or at least newer to me. And then also Mary Bookmas was kind of like if I could fit them in, I did, but I could double up if I wanted to or if I had to. So without further ado, the first book that I read was The Trials of Morrigan Crow, which is the first book in the Nevermore series by Jessica Townsend. Jessica, I just want to say thank you so much for writing this book. It is excellent. I know that this is a very hyped book on BookTube. This is a middle grade, like magical, fantasy, whimsical type book. It's definitely just excellent for fans of Harry Potter or for magical middle grade books. So basically I gave this a 5 star. I absolutely loved it. The main characters in this is Morrigan Crow. So she is our main character. She is considered to be a cursed child, which means that she should die on the eve of her 11th birthday, and that everything that goes wrong is because of her in her village or community or city or whatever. So everybody blames her for everything. Like if somebody gets a cold, they blame it on her because she looked at them or something. It's just trivial. So as we go through this story, on the eve of her 11th birthday, when she's supposed to die, a character called Jupiter North shows up and whisks her away to, I forget what the city is called, but he whisked her away to participate in this like event, which is a challenge of 4 different trials for entering into the Wondrous Society. So she is wanting to become a member, and he entered her into this contest where there's 4 different trials. The trials are really cool, like magical game elements. I do plan on continuing in this series. That is that. Oh, and as far as reading challenges go, I used the prompt Cozy Book for the Bookmas readathon, as this book met that challenge, and then a magical book and the Clear Your Shitathon. So that served 2 different challenges. The next book I read is a reread. nobody's surprised. A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This is my all-time favorite series of all time. She is my all-time favorite author. I hope to find more authors that I love as much as her. I'm definitely not trying to be picky. I think Jennifer L. Armentrout and Alexandra Bracken and possibly Brandon Sanderson might be up there, but for now, she's my ultimate #1 author of all time. And this is my favorite series. So this is actually a Beauty and the Beast retelling. This is the first in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. This is like a new adult fantasy retelling kind of book. So basically our main characters are Feyre, who is a human, and she actually... She and her family are very poor. She goes in the woods one day to try to find food, and she stumbles upon this wolf, and she shoots this wolf for the hide and for the food for her family so they can have money and food. And basically what ends up happening is that wolf actually was a fairy, and he was like a sentinel in part of the Spring Court. So Tamlin one day shows up. He is the High Lord of the Spring Court, and he whisks her away to the Spring Court. How many times can I say Spring Court? He takes her to the Spring Court as like retribution for killing this sentinel. Little does she know there's actually a curse upon Tamlin and his court, and it's the Beauty and the Beast retelling. So Tamlin and his court are forced to wear masks, and I can't reveal anymore. It'll ruin the end of the story, but the end of the story was such a surprise. Like the last 200 pages or so, I was not expecting it all. So definitely go into this. A little bit steamy, but definitely not much. The next books get lot better. So that is that one. I read that as part of the Overhyped challenge for Bookmas. Again, I know Overhyped's intent is a book that's overhyped and it's not good. This is not what I'm saying with this book. But you can see this recommended everywhere. TikTok, BookTube, YouTube. Well, YouTube and BookTube are the same thing. Facebook, Goodreads, everywhere. Like everybody who reads as much as I do, or as much as you do probably, knows about Sarah J. Maas and they know about this book. So that's why I put it in the overhyped category, but I still gave it a 5-star. Hopefully you will love that series as much as I did. The next book I read is The Heart Goes Last by Margaret Atwood. She is the author of A Handmaid's Tale, or The Handmaid's Tale, I can't remember, which is a beautiful hard-hitting book, and I really wanted to give another one of her books a try. So this book I picked up strictly because of the synopsis. So you can see there's two people here wearing jumpsuits, and basically this is about Stan and Charmaine, who are a married couple, and I think they live in like a contemporary setting. So this is like a contemporary but also a futuristic kind of book, maybe a little bit of sci-fi in there. I'm not really sure how to classify it, but Stan and Charmaine are very poor. They are living in their vehicle, which is actually kind of the norm. So there's a lot of danger, lack of food, lack of money, people stealing things and hurting other people. So the government or somebody comes up with the idea of, if you agree to live for a month in prison as a prisoner, then they will let you live another month in this beautiful home, and you have money and food and whatever you want to do. So they both sign up for this program. Stan is put into the men's prison, Charmaine is put in the women's prison, so they don't see each other for one of the months, and then the next month they're both in their house together. Now, that concept is super intriguing, right? Like, I thought that was super cool. I really wanted to read it. And that beginning half of the book I really enjoyed. But the second half, there's this whole like romance thing that comes up, and like I can't tell you without giving it away, but it's like a whole different story. It didn't feel like it was the same book. It felt like it should have been two different stories. So I don't think I'm going to recommend this one, although the idea was excellent. I gave it a 3-star, so it was just okay. But I used this to meet the prompt of free choice for my Clear Your Shitathon. You'll see a few free choices coming up here. I did meet a lot of the other prompts, but I met a lot of them in November. The next one is going to be You by Caroline Kepnes. You may also know this is a Netflix show. I did watch the Netflix show first, but I really wanted to read this. I knew about the book before it was turned into a Netflix show, but I didn't get around to reading it until I watched it. But I watched the show. I absolutely loved it. Read the book. The show is very true to the book. There's a few differences, but nothing super crazy. So we have our main character, Beck, who is this girl who walks into a bookstore one day, and the bookstore, I think he's the manager. His name is Joe Steinbeck. His name is Joe Goldberg, and he sees Beck. He becomes infatuated with Beck. He starts to follow and stalk and like just turns super creepy, but they end up in this super creepy romance, and she has no idea that he's been like stalking her and all these other things. And her best friend Peach is in this story, and basically it's just a thriller where bad things happen. I thought it was excellent. I gave it 5 stars. I mean, it's not my personal favorite type of book, but I thought the writing was good. I thought the characters were good. I thought it was an excellent story. So it's just very dark and very creepy. I used that for the Clear Your Shitathon prompt of a character I want to fight. And then I use it for the Bookmas prompt of read in my favorite cozy spot. Next is going to be Sweet Peril. This is the second book in the Sweet Evil. I want to say it's a trilogy, but I know there's a 4th book written in the male character's perspective, so I'm going to say it's a trilogy. This is the second book in the Sweet Evil series by Wendy Higgins. I read the first book last month. This is about a character named Anna White and Kaiden Rowe, I want to say is his last name. And Anna, I won't go into depth because it's a second book in a series. I don't want to spoil it for anybody. But basically, Anna finds out that she's the daughter of a fallen angel / like demon and like a good angel. So she's a child of both, and she meets Kaiden Rowe and a bunch of other children who are children of just a fallen angel or a demon. And so each of them has a father that they call a duke, or I think it's a duke, who is in charge of a particular sin. So Anna's father is in charge of addiction, so drinking, drugs, that kind of thing. Kaiden's father, or the duke, is in charge of lust, so he has to do all sorts of lustful things. Very cheesy concept, but it was good. It was enough to make me want to finish reading the whole thing. I gave it a 3 star. I liked the part about how she's meeting the other characters more, the other children of these fallen angels, that they're called Nephilim. And I like learning about really just, that was probably it. I just really enjoyed the characters. And I think the forbidden relationship between Kaiden and Anna was pretty cool. Not pretty cool. It was just, you know, one of those tropes that you tend to enjoy. It is a problematic series. I don't recommend it anymore, but I enjoyed it. I did want to finish out the series, so that's what I did. I use it for the Clear Your Shit prompt of another free choice and the Bookmas prompt of a romance / friendship. Next, I read The Dreadful Tale of Prosper Redding by Alexandra Bracken. Again, I've read a lot of her books and I've enjoyed all of them, so I'm thinking she might be a new favorite author, but it's not a 5 star. This is a very close, it was a 4 star, only because if I'm comparing it to something that I love as much as A Court of Mist and Fury or House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas, it's not a 5. It's not the same level. They're different books. And that's where I'm going to say there's nothing wrong with this book. It's excellent. It's magical and whimsical. It's about this child named Prosper, or Prosperity Redding, and his twin sister. I forget her name. Prudence. And they find out that a long time ago, one of their family members made a deal with a demon. And now one of the two has the demon inside of them. And it turns out it's Prudence. Or I'm sorry, it turns out it's Prosper, which is why it's The Dreadful Tale of Prosper Redding. And the demon appears in the form of a white fox. But he's basically inside of him. He learns to like control the body. So it's a really cool story. They're basically trying to figure out how to get rid of the demon and live their own separate lives. But the demon's goal is to start another contract with Prosper to try and continue his power. So it's just a really magical story. I did end up picking up the second one, which you'll hear about my review in January's wrap up, but I really enjoyed this. I think it's excellent. I can't complain at all. It just wasn't as amazing as my other favorite books of all time. That's the only reason I did not get a 5 star. So strictly because of personal taste. This is still an excellent book. I still highly recommend it. It does read like a middle grade. The audiobook is excellent. I really liked the narrator's interpretation of the demon's voice. I don't remember the demon's name, but he does have a name in here somewhere. Definitely recommend this. This is the book I used for the Bookmas prompt of magic. So the next book I read was actually the third book in the Sweet Evil trilogy by Wendy Higgins. This is Sweet Reckoning, which is the finale or the season. I don't know what they call the last book in the series, other than the 4th book that I mentioned that's written in the male's perspective, but I don't think I'm going to read that. I gave this a 2 star because it is the conclusion, and it's just cheesy. You know, the whole buildup is, again, Anna's the daughter of both a fallen angel and a good angel, and then all these other children are just children of fallen angels, but they all want to gear up against the dukes and the demons and I guess Satan himself, I don't know, and they don't want to live in support of their proposed sin anymore. So, you know, very, very cheesy, good versus evil battle at the end. That was such a letdown. Like, I wanted some epic sort of battle. That was not the case. It lasted like a minute. It was not good at all. It had some good relationship building between Kaiden and Anna, but again, very problematic. Don't recommend it. Gave it a 2-star. Use it for the prompt of the Clear Your Shitathon free choice. Again, see, I told you there were a couple free choices in here. Next, I read The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. This is the first book in the Mistborn. It's not a trilogy. I think they're on the 7th book now. This is another extremely, extremely hyped book. So this is about Vin, a character named Vin, a character named Kelsier who finds Vin. Vin is basically really poor. She's living with this group of men who use her to try and get money from other people. She has this gift they call luck, and they try to use her to take advantage of other people through negotiations and money and all that other stuff. So Kelsier finds her one day and discovers and tells her that she is a Mistborn, which is somebody who can use metals. I think there's 8 or 10, I don't know, could be wrong. There's several metals that one can essentially consume and then burn to use for specific powers. So the magic system, like everybody says, is super interesting, super worth the hype. This was a very, very good book. So Kelsier eventually trains Vin to become a Mistborn, and there's a battle against the Lord Ruler. She meets a character named Elin in this, who is a nobleman. So there's a lot of world building. It's a very slow burn book. So if you do not like slow burn books, you will not like this. I thought I did not like slow burning books, but this one kept my interest. I really loved the epic battle at the end against the Lord Ruler, and it feels like it could be a standalone book on its own because of that conclusion. But I definitely want to continue in this series, and I do recommend this to other people. He's on track to hopefully, potentially, maybe be a new favorite author of all time. I'm reading the second one now, so you'll probably hear about that one in my February wrap-up. But I use this for the Clear Your Shitathon prompt of a book with a map, and I gave it 5 stars. Next is going to be Fortuna Sworn by KJ Sutton. I watch Becca and the Books channel. I'll put her link down below if I remember. She recommended this. She loves this series, and she also loves Court of Thorns and Roses series, and she said this was very similar, so I definitely wanted to pick that up. This is a self-published book, which I also really enjoy supporting self-published authors, but she has a lot of other like actual published books with an agency, but this series she's self-published, and you can tell I love the way self-published books feel, and like the cover, they're just really interesting. This is a new adult fantasy about fairies, and Fortuna Sworn is our main character. She is known as what is a nightmare, and that means that she can essentially make people envision their worst nightmare, like think that it's real and really happening to them. And her brother goes missing. So at the beginning of the story, we learn that she's trying to find her brother, and she comes upon this fairy, and he says, "Hey, I know where your brother is. I will show you as long as you marry me." And she does. I hated that part. Like, I don't understand why you would do that. There's a very strong female character here, and the fairy comes up to you and says, "Oh, you're beautiful. Will you marry me? And then I'll show you where your brother is." I don't get it. But anyway, so she goes into this fairy realm. I forget what it's called. And she has to go through these 3 trials, I guess, I forget. It's been a while. It's been 2 months. I'm sorry. She has to go through 3 trials and to become like the fairy queen or something, or the fairy ruler. And I mean, that part I liked. I liked the challenge part. I don't dislike Fortuna Sworn as a character, but nothing happened in this book. I don't get it. I don't get it. It was a 3-star for me, so it was okay. I do want to continue this series, but it's definitely not a favorite of all time. I think others would really enjoy this. I definitely understand why Becca enjoys it. I just personally couldn't get over that whole "will you marry me" part, and then really nothing happened after that. So that's my personal opinion. 3-star. I read it for the Bookmas prompt of a book with a bird or fruit on the cover. You can see there are some birds flying in the background of that cover. Next is another Sarah J. Maas book. I read 3 this month, so just a fair warning. This is her newest published book. It's called House of Earth and Blood, which is the Crescent City book 1. New favorite book of all time. I definitely see how this can be the most celebrated book published by Sarah J. Maas. Like, I definitely understand. I still think A Court of Thorns and Roses is my favorite so far, but this is only book 1. And Sarah J. Maas is known to get better and better with her series. So this is an adult fantasy. This is about a character named Bryce, her best friend Donica, and a fallen angel named Hunt. So there is I go into Sarah J. Maas's books not reading the synopsis. I go into a lot of my books that way. There is a huge event that happens around page 60 to 70 or so. Huge event. Devastating. Oh, I recommend, if you have not read the synopsis, if you do not know what this is about, go into it blind. It's so much better that way. I don't know why they put this event in the synopsis. I don't get it. But that's my only complaint about this book. But basically it turns into, after this event happens, Bryce has to go on this like detective work kind of, where they're trying to solve a murder. And Hunt is a fallen angel assigned to her to help find or solve this murder, help find the killer. And I adore this. Every fantasy creature almost that you can think of is in this book. One of the things I absolutely love about Sarah J. Maas is her character building. You meet a character, you get this opinion of them, and you find out they're not at all who they seem. And that is what I absolutely love. She also writes amazingly strong friendship groups that are just super sacrificing for their friends. They love them without any boundaries. Like, well, that sounds bad, but you get my point. They would just do anything for these friends. They would sacrifice for them, die for them, and, you know, just all sorts of things. And the world is beautiful. I am so excited to continue in this series. I hope it's as long as A Throne of Glass. I hope it's longer. Like, if you want to make this 14 books long, I am here for it. But this is definitely a very, very good book. Definitely gets a little bit of steamy romance in there. Not quite as much as the Court of Thorns and Roses series in the second and third books, but definitely up there. And you just learn to really love Bryce. You really learn to love Donica. You really learn to love Hunt. And Sarah J. Maas also writes characters that have a lot of pain and experience pain and trauma and how they overcome that. And they're just so real. Sarah, thank you for writing this series, for all your series. I love them all. I use that one to fulfill the prompt of a red book for Bookmas and my most expensive book for Clear Your Shitathon, because I don't really spend full price on a book most of the time, unless it's one of my favorite books of all time. Next is Ready Player 2 by Ernest Cline. This is the unneeded sequel to Ready Player 1, which is one of my favorite books of all time. I absolutely loved it. So of course I'm going to pick up the second one. My husband actually pre-ordered this for me for my birthday. So this is actually being used for the Clear Shitathon prompt of a pre-order and a Bookmas, a book involving a game. Hopefully the title will give that away for you and telling you it's a game. Basically, we're following Wade Watts, who... I can't go into too much detail. If you haven't read the first one, definitely do. It's a bunch of 80s movies and games and show references and book references, and it's super awesome. I absolutely loved it, and I knew when I read it should be turned into a movie, and it did. And the movie is nothing like the book. I mean, it's not very true to the book, so definitely read the book. It's a separate experience. I think this was good. I gave it a 3-star. I did not hate it. I actually thought I would hate it, and I didn't. It's its own story. It's what happens after Halliday's contest, and it's basically another contest, but just for Wade. And there's a lot of dark elements. You basically see a 180-degree turnaround for Halliday, which I know a lot of people complained about, but I can actually see it being pretty true, to be honest, now looking back on this. We also see a character change in Wade, which, you know, I like learning about what happens to somebody after certain events happen. So I felt like that was pretty true. And there's an artificial intelligence in here. That part was cheesy, but I liked how it was done. So the story was good. I still recommend it. I still enjoyed it. So just read the first one first, and then you can decide from there if you want to continue on. All right, my last book, Nobody's Surprised, is another Sarah J. Maas book, A Court of Mist and Fury. This is my all-time favorite book of all time. This is my favorite book in the series. This is the second. So we have Rhysand, we have Tamlin, but there's a character, Rhysand, who's introduced in the first book, primarily towards the end. And he creates a deal with Fair that she has to go to the court, the night court, I want to say like 1 week every month or something. So this is the book about when he calls in that deal. And they develop they get to know each other, and she gets to meet the other Night Court members, and it's a whole different world. And you know, you're really reading about what happened to Feyre after the ending of the first book. We're learning what happened to Rhysand after the ending of the first book. Tamlin is still kind of in it, but not very much. Lucien is in it, which is Tamlin's like second in command, kind of. I just can't. This has the most beautiful relationship, and I know there's going to be problematic elements in every book. I don't mind that Sarah J. Maas writes about very masculine characters. I am completely open to authors who write gay relationships, non-gendered relationships. I don't care. They can be feminine, they can be non-feminine. I love it all. These two characters in general, their personalities, their essence, their being, who they are, what they stand for, what they've experienced, what they've sacrificed is what I love. I love their relationship because it's just so... Ugh. It's just the dream relationship, in my opinion. It doesn't matter, male, female, I don't care. It's the dream relationship. It's not about anything else. But they also have the strongest friendship group I've ever read about. Like, this makes me want to find the friends that I would feel this way about. And again, we're going through a lot of trauma, some pain, possibly like PTSD, and how these characters are overcoming that. I can't say anymore. Definitely, even especially if you read the first one and you thought it was great, this is so much better. So much better. Like, compared to the first one, or comparing the two, this is a 5-star and that one's like a 3, if that tells you anything. And I love both books. So hopefully you check them out. I use this for the Bookmas prompt of to read a fantasy. Gave this a 5-star. Nobody is surprised. That is all of my 12 books. So hopefully you liked it. Sorry, I just ramble on for 30 minutes here. I'll try to edit it down. I will be catching up in the future on my wrap-ups and TBRs and other videos. I definitely want to post more content. I just have to get into a schedule. So we'll work on that. Right now it's for fun. I'm doing it when I can. Hopefully you like it and hopefully you understand. If you want to see more, please subscribe and leave me a comment letting me know if you've read any of these books, if any of these are your favorites, if you have any recommendations for me based on these books. And I look forward to talking with you next time.